imagine the scenario. You've done everything right.
Everything. To the letter.
Exactly right. You listened to the instructions, you followed the guidance, you stepped out in faith, and you took this massive risk. You put your whole reputation on the line, and you're standing there, expecting the breakthrough, expecting the clouds to part, the music to swell.
The big win.
The big win. And instead, what you get is total disaster.
It's that moment the floor just drops out from under you.
Yes. The situation doesn't just stay the same. It gets measurably, objectively worse. Your resources, they get cut. The pressure doubles.
And the very people you were trying to help.
They turn on you. They start blaming you for the whole mess.
It is the classic crisis moment, isn't it? It's that moment where the promise you were holding on to feels not just distant, but like a cruel joke.
Like a lie, even.
Yeah, like a lie.
And this isn't just a modern problem. We are starting today with a dramatic retelling of exactly that moment in the life of Moses. He's standing before God, completely demoralized. He did exactly what he was told, and the result was just chaos. And that brings us to the central question we are exploring in this timely word. Why does doing the right thing sometimes result in your life getting immediately harder? Why does this draw the very resources you need? Why does it disappear just when the demand on you is highest?
The mystery of the vanishing straw. And it forces us, I think, to confront a very uncomfortable reality about how fulfillment actually works versus how we think it should work.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Timely Word. We are so glad you are here with us. Today, we are going on a bit of a journey. We're going to connect an ancient labor dispute in Egypt,
Right.
a high-stakes mining expedition that's described in the book of Job, and a mysterious singular name that's found in an empty tomb in the book of Matthew.
It sounds like a strange mix of locations, doesn't it? A brickyard, a deep mine shaft, and a cemetery.
It really does.
But the thread that connects them all is, well, it's profound. It reveals why fulfillment looks so different than promise. And I think by the time we are done today, you will understand the difference between a God who promises and a God who is, and why that distinction changes absolutely everything about how you handle pressure.
So let's jump right into the drama. We need to set the scene properly because I think we've all seen the cartoon versions of this story too many times. We've missed the grit of it.
Oh, absolutely. The sanitized version.
We're in Exodus chapter 5.
Yeah.
This is the setup. Moses and Aaron, they walk into the palace. This is high drama, HBO style. They approach Pharaoh, the most powerful man on earth, with a demand from God, let my people go.
But notice the specific request. It wasn't just let them go so they can do whatever they want. It wasn't a request for a vacation. The line is, let my people go that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness.
Okay, let's unpack those words because I feel like we just gloss over feast and wilderness. To a modern ear, a feast in a wilderness sounds like a terrible picnic.
Right. Sand in your sandwiches, hot sun, no amenities.
Exactly. Why those two words?
Right. But the etymology and the symbolism here are just crucial. Feast implies enjoyment, satisfaction, and worship. It's a celebration. It suggests that the relationship between God and his people is meant to be one of joy, not just duty.
Okay, so it's about relationship.
It is. But wilderness implies separation. It means separation from the world system, from the culture of Egypt. You cannot truly feast with God while you're still engaged in the production line of Egypt.
So you can't have the feast in the city. You have to get out.
You have to get out. Exactly. You have to leave the system to enjoy the Creator.
And there's a really specific detail in verse 3. They asked to go a 3 days journey. Why 3 days? Why not 2? Why not a week? Is this just a random travel estimate? Like it takes about 3 days to get to the good camping spot?
Well, in the Bible, numbers are almost never random. The number 3 it's highly significant. 3 days signifies resurrection. Think about it. It's the time from the cross to the empty tomb. Jonah was in the fish 3 days. Jesus was in the earth 3 days. So spiritually speaking, this 3 days journey isn't just about distance on a map. It's about a state of being.
A state of being? What do you mean?
It's about moving from the world, which is Egypt, through death and into resurrection. The journey is about crossing the Red Sea.
Okay.
The Red Sea represents baptism or death. On the other side of that water, you are in resurrection ground. That is where the feast happens.
So Moses is basically walking in and asking Pharaoh, hey, we need to take a break from your entire economy, die to your world, and go enjoy God in resurrection.
Precisely. And you can imagine how well that went over with Pharaoh.
Not well. Not well at all. Pharaoh's reaction is fascinating because he doesn't just say no. He He doesn't arrest them. He doesn't execute them. He launches a counterattack.
He does. And we have to understand who Pharaoh represents here. In the biblical type, Pharaoh represents the usurping Satan and also the usurped self.
The usurped self.
Yeah, that part of us that's been taken over by the world's way of thinking. He represents the force that wants to keep humanity busy, occupied, and enslaved to production. So his response isn't just a denial, it's a strategic attack on their time.
This is where the straw comes in. This is the famous scene. Pharaoh says, "You guys are idle. You have too much free time if you're thinking about worship." So he commands the taskmasters. No more straw given to the people for the bricks.
Right.
But, and here's the kicker, the quota of bricks remains exactly the same.
It is a crushing tactic, and we need to understand the mechanics of this to really feel the weight of it.
Yeah, explain the straw thing. Because I think most people, like me, just assume straw is filler, like sawdust and particle board.
Right, but it's actually chemistry. The mud from the Nile was heavy and thick, but as it dried in the sun, it would shrink and crack. It would lose its structural integrity. The straw did two things.
Okay.
Mechanically, it acted as a binder, like rebar in concrete. But chemically, the decaying straw released an acid that made the clay more plastic and easier to shape and stronger when it dried.
So without the straw, the work isn't just harder. The bricks literally fall apart.
They fall apart or they are incredibly difficult to mold, so the work becomes physically harder. But the real punishment was the logistics. Previously, the straw was delivered to the worksite.
Right, it was part of their supply chain.
Exactly. Now the text says the people had to scatter throughout all the land of Egypt to gather stubble for straw.
Stubble, that's like the garbage grass left over after the harvest, right?
Yeah.
The useless stuff.
It's exactly that. It's the short, prickly stuff still rooted in the ground. You have to dig it out. You have to scavenge for it. So think about the math of their day.
Okay.
If they were working, say, 12 hours making bricks before, now they have to spend maybe 4 or 5 of those hours just scavenging for the raw materials to start working. But the quota, the output expectation, didn't drop by a single brick.
That sounds like a modern corporate nightmare. We're firing your support staff, removing your budget, but we expect year-over-year growth of 10%.
It is the exact same spirit. It's what we call quiet firing or constructive dismissal today. You make the conditions so impossible that the person breaks.
Right.
But Pharaoh's goal wasn't just to break their bodies, it was to break their spirit.
How so?
Pharaoh calls the desire to worship idleness. He says, "You are idle. You are idle, therefore you say, 'Let us go and sacrifice to Jehovah.'" To the world system, spiritual time spent feasting with God, time spent in the Word, time spent just being with the Lord looks like laziness.
No.
It looks like wasted time, unproductive.
That hits home. I think we all feel that. You sit down to pray or read, and immediately your brain starts screaming, "You have emails to answer. You have laundry to do. You're being unproductive."
That voice. That is the voice of Pharaoh. It's the accusation of idleness. But here is the spiritual insight. To the world, feasting with God is idleness. But to God, that worldly busyness is vanity. It's emptiness.
So Pharaoh's strategy is the strategy of busyness.
Yes. If he can keep you so exhausted, gathering straw and making bricks, you will never have the energy or the mental space to even think about a 3 days journey.
So spiritual warfare isn't always some spooky supernatural manifestation. Sometimes spiritual warfare is just your calendar getting completely overwhelmed.
Often, that is exactly what it is. The removal of straw, the removal of worldly supply or ease, is a tactic to discourage you from the feast. If you are exhausted and in survival mode, you stop dreaming of freedom. You just dream of sleep.
And it worked. I mean, the strategy was brutally effective. The people, they turn on Moses. They meet him coming out of the palace and they say, "May the Lord look upon you and judge."
Yeah, you've made us odious in Pharaoh's sight.
Basically, you made us stink to the boss. You've made our lives impossible.
They blamed the messenger. And honestly, can you blame them? Their lives got objectively worse the moment Moses showed up with a word from God.
And then Moses, the great leader, the man of faith, he breaks. He completely breaks down. He turns to God in Exodus 5:22 and 23 and says, "Lord, why have you mistreated this people? Why did you even send me?"
It's a moment of total disillusionment. Moses expected that because God sent him, the doors would just swing open, Pharaoh would bow, and it would be easy.
Right, a smooth process.
Instead, everyone is mad at him, the work is harder, and God seems to be absent. He says, "For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, neither have you delivered your people at all."
I love the honesty of that. You haven't done what you said you would do. It feels like a betrayal.
It does, and that is where so many people walk away from their faith. When the straw disappears, they assume God has left the building. But this brings us to section 2 and the pivot, because God answers Moses. But he doesn't answer with a weapon. He doesn't apologize. He answers with what looks like a grammar lesson.
It sounds strange, but looking at Exodus 6, that's exactly what it is. God starts defining words for him.
In Exodus 6, 2, and 3, God answers Moses' complaint by revealing his name in a new way. He says, I am Jehovah. And then he makes this really critical distinction. He says, I appear to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai, but by my name, Jehovah, I was not known to them.
Okay, we have to geek out on the etymology here because this is huge. Most of us just read God and Lord and think it's the same thing. But God is making a massive distinction here. What is the difference between El Shaddai and Jehovah?
This is the absolute key to unlocking the whole situation. El Shaddai is often translated as God Almighty. That's the traditional translation.
Right.
But their root meanings are very tender, very organic. El means the mighty one, implying strength. But Shaddai comes from the Hebrew root shad, which implies breast or udder.
Wait, really? So God Almighty is actually linked to the image of a nursing mother?
Yes. It conveys the idea of the all-sufficient one, the supplier, the nourisher. Think about a nursing infant. To that child, the mother is everything. She is the source of food, the source of comfort, the source of life, the source of immunity. The child doesn't work for the milk. The child just receives.
So, to the patriarchs, to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, God was the one who promised and the one who supplied their needs. He was the wealthy benefactor.
Correct. He was the promiser. They lived in the realm of promise. They were nomads. They needed water, they needed protection, they needed children, and God supplied those things. But think about their lives. They never actually saw the great nation they were promised. They never owned the land except for a burial cave. They had the check, but they hadn't cashed it yet. Hebrews 11 tells us they died in faith, not having received the promises. They knew the promiser, El Shaddai.
But now with Moses, the situation is changing. The check is about to be cashed.
Yes. God says, but by my name, Jehovah, I did not make myself known to them. Jehovah, or Yahweh, is related to the verb to be. It means the self-existing one, the I am. The shift here is from promise to fulfillment. El Shaddai is the God who promises. Jehovah is the God who fulfills.
So God is telling Moses, your ancestors had the promise. You are entering the stage of fulfillment. And for that, you need to know me, not just as the promiser, but as the I am.
And think about the logic God uses against Pharaoh. Pharaoh thinks he is the big shot. The problems, the lack of straw, the quotas, they seem very real. They seem like the defining reality of the Israelites' lives.
They are their reality.
Right. But God is introducing the concept of absolute existence. He is saying, I am. By implication, Pharaoh is not. The problems are not. The lack of straw is not. Only God has permanent, eternal existence.
That is a mind-bending way to look at a crisis. To look at your problem, that missing straw, that angry boss, that pile of debt, and say, in the light of the I am, you actually don't exist. You are temporary. You are a vapor.
It is the ultimate reality check. It relativizes everything else. And God connects this name Jehovah specifically to the covenant.
Right.
In Exodus 6, verses 4 through 8, notice how many times he says, I will. It's like a drum beat.
I will bring you out. I will redeem you.
I will take you to myself. I will bring you into the land.
It is so emphatic. It's not I might, or if you work hard enough, or if you gather enough stubble. It just, I will.
Because he is the I am. He is the fulfilling God. The patriarchs had the promise. Moses is getting the fulfillment. But, and here's the tragedy, Moses goes and tells this amazing revelation to the people. He runs back to the brick pits and says, guys, I met with God. He is the I am. He's going to do it.
What's their reaction?
And verse 9 says they could not listen to Moses.
Why? Did they not believe him?
The text says they couldn't listen on account of anguish of spirit and cruel bondage. The Hebrew, therefore anguish of spirit, literally means shortness of breath.
Like a panic attack.
Exactly. They were so crushed by the pressure, so breathless from the anxiety and the nonstop work, that they physically could not process the theology.
Wow, that is so real. Sometimes the pain makes you deaf to hope. The theology is, true God is the I am, but the anguish of spirit, the shortness of breath from the anxiety, it makes it impossible to hear.
It doesn't change the fact of who God is, but it certainly changes our reception of it. The cruel bondage of the world can make us numb to the revelation of God. That's why the straw tactic is so effective. It keeps us too panicked to hear the I am. Pharaoh knows that if he can keep you breathless, you won't listen to the deliverer.
And it's not just the people who are struggling. Moses himself has this major insecurity complex.
Yeah.
We see this in section 3. He starts arguing with God again. He says, look, the people won't listen to me. Pharaoh definitely won't listen to me. I am of uncircumcised lips.
He says it twice, in Exodus 6:12 and then again in 6:30. He loops back to it. I have uncircumcised lips. He is just obsessed with his own inadequacy.
What does that mean exactly? Uncircumcised lips.
It's a Hebrew idiom. Circumcision represented the removal of the flesh to be useful to God. So uncircumcised lips means he felt his speech was fleshy, clumsy, obstructed. He likely had a speech impediment, or he just felt incredibly ineloquent compared to the smooth-talking Egyptian courtiers.
So his expectation was, God, if you are sending me to talk to the king, you need to fix my mouth. You need to give me the gift of gab.
Right. Lord, if you want me to speak, give me a silver tongue, zap me with a miracle so I can do this job.
But look at the reality of it. God does not fix his lips.
No, he doesn't. The text never says, and behold, Moses' lips were circumcised, and he spoke like a poet. Never. His lips stayed exactly the same. He kept the stutter. He kept the clumsiness.
So what was God's solution? If he's not going to fix the flaw, how does the job get done?
God appoints Aaron. He says in Exodus 7:1, see, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet. God's solution wasn't to remove the weakness. It was to provide a way through the weakness by using the body, by using another person.
That is a massive lesson. We are always waiting for God to fix our flaws before we serve him. Lord, make me confident, then I'll speak. Lord, give me resources, then I'll give. But God says, no, keep the limp, keep the stutter. I'm going to use you as you are, and I'll provide an Aaron.
And it emphasizes that the power isn't in Moses' smooth talking. It's in God's strong hand. If Moses were eloquent, he might think he was the one who persuaded Pharaoh. He might think, wow, I really crushed that debate.
Right, he'd take the credit.
But with uncircumcised lips, when Pharaoh eventually cracks, everyone knows it was the strong hand of Jehovah, not the charisma of Moses.
And right in the middle of this high-stress narrative, the Bible does something that drives modern readers crazy. Exodus 6, verses 14 to 25. It randomly drops a genealogy. It just stops the action for a list of names. Reuben, Simeon, Levi. Why? Why kill the momentum for a family tree?
It seems like such an interruption, like a commercial break in the middle of a movie, but it's actually a credential check. This genealogy traces the line of Levi down to Amram and then to Moses and Aaron. It's there to prove that these aren't just two random guys who decided to start a revolution because they were having a midlife crisis.
They aren't just self-appointed activists.
Right. They are chosen. They are ordained. This isn't ambition. It is assignment. It anchors the spiritual battle in history and God's sovereign choice. It tells the reader, this is legitimate. These men are authorized.
Okay, so we have established the struggle. The labor is hard. The straw is gone. The leader feels inadequate. Now, I want to pivot to a completely different kind of labor. We are jumping from the brickyards of Egypt to a mining operation in the book of Job.
It's a fascinating transition. In Exodus, man is laboring for bricks, mud, and straw, which ultimately represents the world's building materials. It's surface-level toil.
Rather.
But in Job 28, there is this incredible poem about a different kind of labor. It describes man digging deep into the earth, but this time, he is looking for precious things.
Job 28 is incredible poetry. If you haven't read it, you really should. It describes miners putting an end to darkness. They swing on ropes in shafts where no foot has trodden. They overturn mountains by the boots. They're looking for silver, gold, iron, copper, sapphires.
It shows the relentless drive of humanity to find value. Think about the risk. These ancient miners were dangling on ropes in pitch-black darkness, miles from home, risking suffocation and collapse. Why? For a blue stone. For a shiny metal.
Man will go to the ends of the earth, risk death, and overturn mountains to find precious stones. But then Job asks the central question in verse 12. But where shall wisdom be found?
And that's the pivot. He says, look at human ingenuity. We can extract oil from the ocean floor. We can split the atom. We can mine Bitcoin. We can do all these amazing things. But where is wisdom?
He goes through the list. The deep says, it is not in me. The sea says, it is not with me. Gold can't buy it. Topaz can't equal it.
The conclusion in Job is that the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom. But if we look at this through a New Testament lens, we can connect it back to our theme of fulfillment. Man is mining the earth for gold. But God is also performing a mining operation.
How so?
God isn't looking for physical gold. He owns all the gold. He is mining us. In the Bible, God is working himself into man. The ultimate gold in Scripture often represents the divine nature. So while we are busy making bricks for the world's production or digging for earthly treasure, God is trying to mine us to work his divine nature into our humanity.
That connects to the New Jerusalem, doesn't it? The city at the very end of the Bible in Revelation. It's described as being made of pure gold and precious stones.
Exactly. And where do precious stones come from? They come from heat and pressure. Carbon becomes a diamond only under intense pressure. The stones in the New Jerusalem represent the result of God's mining and refining work in his people over centuries.
So, bringing it back to the straw concept, the straw might disappear in your life because God isn't interested in you making more mud bricks. He's interested in refining the gold of his nature that's inside of you. And that requires heat. That requires the removal of the easy supply.
Precisely. If life is easy, if you have plenty of straw, you just keep making bricks for Pharaoh. But when the straw vanishes, when the heat turns up, that is when the transformation happens. That is when a carbon starts becoming a diamond. The hardship isn't just an obstacle, it's a refinery.
That totally reframes the struggle.
Yeah.
But this search for value, this mining for the ultimate gold, leads us to the ultimate victory. Because the greatest mine ever opened was the tomb of Jesus.
Yes. Let's flash forward to Matthew 28, the ultimate conflict. We've had Moses versus Pharaoh. Now we have Jesus versus death itself. It's the empty tomb.
The scene is so dramatic. Matthew describes a great earthquake. An angel rolls away the stone and just sits on it. His appearance is like lightning. And the guards, the representatives of earthly power, the pharaohs of that moment, they shake and become like dead men.
But I want to focus on something very specific here. We usually think of the resurrection as a display of raw power. God is strong, so he broke the grave. And that's true. Of course it is.
Right.
But Matthew's gospel has a specific focus on the kingdom and on righteousness.
Righteousness. How is the resurrection about righteousness? I usually think of righteousness as being good or following the rules.
Think about it like a court case. This is a legal drama. Jesus went to the cross to pay a debt. He bore the judgment for our sins. He satisfied the righteous demands of God's law. The wages of sin is death, and he paid those wages.
Okay, he served the sentence.
Exactly. He served the full sentence. Now, imagine a prisoner who has served his full sentence. The fine is paid. The time is done. What must the judge do?
The judge has to let him go. It's the law.
It's the law. If the judge keeps the prisoner in jail 1 second after the sentence is served, the judge becomes the criminal. The judge becomes unrighteous.
I see where you're going with this.
Once the debt of sin was fully paid by Christ's death, God's own justice demanded the release of the prisoner. If God had kept Jesus in the grave after the price was fully paid, God himself would be unrighteous. He would be holding an innocent man, or rather, a man who has legally cleared the ledger.
That is powerful.
Yeah.
So God's power raised him, yes. But God's righteousness compelled the resurrection. It was a legal necessity.
It was. Romans 4:25 says he was raised because of our justification. The fact that he is out of the tomb is the receipt. It's the proof that the check cleared. If the check had bounced, he'd still be in the tomb.
That gives such a stronger foundation for faith. It's not just, I hope God is nice. It's God is legally bound by his own righteousness to accept me because Jesus is out of the jail.
Exactly. We stand on the foundation of God's righteousness, not just his mercy. And look at the contrast in the story. In Matthew 28, verses 11 through 15, the soldiers run to the chief priests. And what happens? A cover-up.
They bribe them, a huge bribe. Here's a large sum of money. Say his disciples came and stole the body while we were sleeping.
It highlights the contrast perfectly. On one side, you have the absolute righteousness of God, releasing his son because justice is satisfied. On the other side, you have the absolute unrighteousness of man lies, bribery, fake news, covering up the truth to protect their own status.
It's the same dynamic as Pharaoh. Man tries to suppress the truth with bricks and money, but God's righteousness cannot be held down.
It can't. And so the disciples, they go to meet Jesus. They go to a mountain in Galilee.
Yeah, why Galilee? Why not Jerusalem? Jerusalem is the holy city, the center of everything.
Well, Jerusalem was the center of religion, the center of the old system that just rejected and crucified him. Jesus calls them to Galilee of the Gentiles. He is starting something new. He is moving away from the religious establishment.
And the mountain.
The mountain symbolizes a high spiritual level. You have to climb to get the vision. You have to leave the lowlands of the old ways.
But verse 17 has this little detail that always comforts me. When they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. Even there, standing in front of the resurrected king of the universe, some doubted.
It's the uncircumcised lips of Moses all over again. Human weakness persists even in the presence of divine glory. We are this mix of worship and doubt. And notice, Jesus doesn't scold them. He doesn't say, "Get out of here, you doubters. I only want the true believers." He immediately moves to the Great Commission. He gives the authority to the group, doubts and all.
Talk about that commission. Matthew 28:18. All authority has been given to me in heaven and on earth.
Link that back to Exodus. Moses stood before Pharaoh with no authority. Pharaoh had the armies, the chariots, the bricks. Moses just had a stick and a word.
Right.
But now, the resurrected Christ says, all authority is mine. That means Pharaoh has zero. The devil has zero. The I am has claimed total dominion.
So we aren't fighting for victory. We are fighting from victory.
That is the key shift. That's everything.
Right.
We don't have to beg Pharaoh to be nice. We appeal to the one who holds all authority. And the mission he gives is specific. Disciple all the nations. Note that he doesn't just say preach the gospel to individuals. He says disciple the nations. Make them students. Make them citizens of this new kingdom.
And then we get to the deep dive into the name. This is where we need to look at the grammar again. Matthew 28:19. Baptizing them into the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.
There is a grammar alert here that we just cannot miss. It says into the name. Singular.
Not names, plural.
Right. It doesn't say the name of the Father and the name of the Son and the name of the Spirit. It says the name, one name of the three.
What does that imply?
It is one of the strongest biblical proofs of the Trinity. It implies that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit are three distinct persons because they are listed separately, yet they share one name. They are one God.
And the command is to baptize people into that name.
Yes, and the Greek word there is es. It implies motion into. It's not just dipping someone in water as a ritual, like washing a car. It's immersing them into a new element, like dropping a sponge into the ocean. The sponge is now in the ocean, and the ocean is in the sponge.
So connect the dots for us. In Exodus, God reveals himself as Jehovah, the I Am. In Matthew, that I Am has been fully processed.
Yes. In Exodus, God was the I Am who promised deliverance. But now, after the incarnation, human living, crucifixion, and resurrection, the I Am is the Father, Son, and Spirit. He is the fully processed God. He's edible. He's enterable.
Enterable. I like that.
By baptizing people into that name, we are putting them into the I Am. We are transferring them from the brickyards of Egypt where they are slaves to the lack of straw into the very reality of the triune God where they are citizens of the kingdom.
That is mind-blowing. We are being baptized into the very thing Moses was trying to explain to the Israelites. We are entering the I Am.
And that brings us to the final promise in verse 20. Behold, I am with you all the days until the consummation of the age.
I am with you. There it is again. The name.
It is the realization of Emmanuel, God with us, but now he isn't just with us physically, like he was with the disciples in Galilee. He is with us as the Spirit, the reality of the name inside of us. He is with us in the strawless days. He is with us in the uncircumcised lips moments. He is with us when the world calls us idle.
So let's bring this all together for our timely word practical application. We have covered a lot of ground. We have the Israelites losing their straw. We have Moses feeling inadequate. We have Job mining for wisdom. And we have the resurrection victory. How do we weave these threads into something we can use on a Tuesday morning when everything is going wrong?
I think there are four main threads to hold on to. Thread one is about the diagnosis of your struggle. We are like the Israelites. We have a desire to feast with God, to enjoy him. But the world, the Pharaoh system, will always try to crush that by giving us bricks without straw.
So when you feel overwhelmed by busyness, when your resources get cut at work, don't just think, oh, I'm having a bad week.
Right. Think, this is a strategy. This is an attack on my time to keep me from the feast. Recognize it. Call it what it is. And the defense is not to work harder for the straw. The defense is to prioritize the feast.
Yeah.
You have to fight for your margin.
Okay, threat two.
We are like Moses. We look at ourselves and we see uncircumcised lips. We see our flaws, our lack of resources, our stuttering, and we complain, God, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But God's answer isn't to fix us instantly. He didn't fix Moses' lips. He provided an Aaron. He provided the body. So stop waiting for perfection before you obey. God's power is made perfect in your weakness.
Thread three. God's answer is the I am.
Yes. The stability of your life isn't based on the straw you gather. It's based on the self-existing God.
So if your security is in the straw, in the supply, in the economy, in your job title, you'll panic when it disappears.
Absolutely. But if your security is in the I am, the source, you can stand even when the straw is gone. Because you know the I am exists regardless of the circumstances.
And thread four.
The resurrection is our legal standing. It's our righteousness. When the enemy accuses us, you're lazy, you're inadequate, you're a sinner, We point to the empty tomb.
We point to the receipt.
We point to the receipt. Justice has been satisfied. The prisoner is free. We don't fight to win. We stand in the victory that has already been won. The I am has swallowed up death.
That changes how we view the news, doesn't it? I mean, looking at the world right now, economic shifts, global tension, uncertainty, it feels like the straw is disappearing on a global scale. We're all being asked to do more with less.
It does. We are living in a strawless era in many ways. Institutions are shaking, resources are scarce, but in a world of uncertainty, the only stability is the I am.
And I think that concept of idleness versus busyness is so crucial for mental health today. We have to be willing to be called idle by the world in order to be faithful to God.
We have to reclaim the feast. We need to stop apologizing for taking time to be with the Lord. To Pharaoh, it's a waste of time. To God, it's the purpose of existence.
This has been such a rich discussion, from the brickyards to the empty tomb. As we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought from the outline. We mentioned earlier that God hardened Pharaoh's heart. He actually made the conflict last longer than it needed to.
It's a provocative thought, isn't it? Why didn't God just zap Pharaoh on day one? He hardened Pharaoh to show forth his power. He allowed the resistance to escalate so that the deliverance would be undeniable.
So here is the thought for you to chew on. What if the stubborn obstacle in your life right now, that boss, that financial issue, that health struggle, what if it isn't a sign that God has left you?
What if that very obstacle is the stage being set for his strong hand to be revealed? What if the lack of straw is just the setup for the glory of the I am?
Exactly. And here's a little tease for next time. We have seen the I am and the resurrection. We know he is with us. But there is a deeper mystery. How does this God live inside a person? We hinted at it with the mining and the baptizing into the name. But next time on Timely Word, we are going to go inward. We are going to look at the spirit and the human spirit.
It is the difference between God with us and God in us. You won't want to miss it.
Until then, find your mountain in Galilee this week. Find a place to see the King, receive the authority, and remember, the straw may disappear, but the I am remains.
Thanks for listening.